Hello and welcome to our channel. If you have not subscribed yet, please subscribe and follow along. Today in this video we are going to discuss the configuration of static routing for this network design number 2. Please stay along so that you learn each and every step of static routing. Here in this design we have 3 routers, R1, R2 and R3, and we have to configure static routing for these 5 networks: 10.0.1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0 and 5.0. I have already configured the IP addresses on the PCs, okay, and also I have configured the IP addresses on the interfaces as well. So before configuring any kind of static routing, let us see the status of routers first. If I access the routers R2, and I see the status of show IP interface brief. If I see the status of interfaces connected to this router, we can see that I have set the IP address for each of the interface. 10.0.3.0 is the network address, and 3.1 10.0.3.1 is the IP address for this interface. Okay, in the same way, the IP address for this interface SE0 by 1 I have the IP address 10.0.4.1. The network address is 4.0 and the IP address for this interface is 10.0.4.1. okay, and for this interface SC0 by 1 by 0 I have the IP address 10.0.2.2. okay, so from this network 10.0.2.0 I have the IP address 10.0.2.2 for this interface. In the same way, I have set all the IP addresses on each of the interfaces connected to every router. So this was the basic settings I have already configured so that we do not lose so much time in these basic settings. For now, let's see the status of routing table on each of the router, and then we will move on towards the static routing, configuration of static routing. Let's see the routing table of R2. Show IP route. This shows that we have 3 directly connected networks to this router: 2.0, 3.0 and 4.0. These 3 are the directly connected networks to this router. Now what's the problem? The problem is, if any traffic arrives at R2 and it is destined for 10.0.1.0 or 10.0.5.0, we should have the path in the routing table of this router towards these networks. So now we will configure the paths towards these networks. The command for static route is IP route, the network address for which we are configuring the static route 10.0.1.0. First we will configure the static route for this network 1.0, the subnet mask, and then the next hop IP address. So for this network, the next hop IP address will be the IP address of this interface. It means that any traffic which comes at R2 will have to pass from this interface to reach this network. Okay, so this interface IP address will act as next hop IP address. So what is the IP address of this interface? 10.0.2.1. 2.1. okay, 10.0.2.1. so we have configured the static route for this network. Now we will do the same for this network also. IP route 10.0.5.0, 255.255.255.0, and the next hop IP address will be the same of this port, So we will use this interface as the next hop IP address. Okay, so on this router we have configured the static routings. Now on this router let's see the status of routing table. Show IP route before configuring the static route. So you can see that we have already available these three networks which are directly connected to this router: 5.0, 2.0 and 1.0. 1.0, 2.0 and 5.0. These three are the directly connected networks to this R1. Okay, so we have to configure the static routing on R1 for these two networks, 3.0 and 4.0. Okay, IP route 10.0.3.0 255.255.255.255.0, and the next hop IP address will be of this interface, serial 0 by 1 by 0. Okay, so the IP address of this interface is 10.0.2.2. 10.0.2.2. okay, and for this network we'll use the same command: IP route 10.0.4.0 255.255.255.0, and the next hop IP address will be the same of this interface, 10.0.2.2. okay, so now it's done on R1 as well. We have configured the static routes on R1 as well. Now let's move on R3. We know that these two are the directly connected networks to R3, 4.0 and 5.0. So for R3 we have to configure static routes for these three networks, 1.0, 2.0 and 3.0. okay, so let's configure. You can see this router only has two directly connected networks, 4.0 and 5.0. For first network 1.0, the next hop IP address will be of IP address of this interface. Okay, so in order to reach this network from this router R3, we need to use the IP address of this interface as the next hop IP address. So any traffic which comes at R3 will have to pass from this interface to reach 10.0.1.0. so the IP address of this interface is 10.0.5.1. 10.0.5.1. okay, good. For this network 10.0.3.0, IP route 10.0.3.0. the next hop IP address will be the IP address of this interface. Okay, 10.0.4.1. okay, from this network 4.1. okay, good. We have configured static routes for two networks, only one is remaining. In order to reach this network from R3, we can use the IP address of this interface as next hop IP address, and we can also use the IP address of this interface as the next hop IP address. So it's up to us. Whatever we like, we can choose any interface. Okay, so we will use the IP address of this interface to reach this network because the distance is same. Okay, we have to pass from one device to reach this from this side, and from this side we also have to pass from one device to reach this network. Okay, so in any other case, if we have to pass from more than one devices from one side and from less number of devices from the other side, so we will choose the path which has less number of devices to reach the network. Okay, so but here we have no problem, we have to pass from only one device from both the paths. So in this case we can use any of the interface. Okay, so we have configured all the static routes on all routers. Let's check this routing table of the routers. Show IP route. You can see we have configured 3 static routes on this router R3 for 1.0, 2.0 and 3.0, and the next hop IP addresses are this one: 5.1, 5.1 and 4.1. If we check the status of R2 routing table, you can see we have configured static route for this network 1.0 and for 5.0. Okay, for 1.0 and for 5.0 we have configured the static routes on R2. Okay, for this network 5.0 and for 1.0 we have configured the static route on R2, and on R1 we can see for 3.0 and for 4.0 we have configured the static routes. Okay, you can see for 3.0 and 4.0 we have configured the static routes on R1. So in this way we have configured all the routers with the static routes towards each of the network. So now our network is fully converged and we are able to send any kind of traffic from one PC to another PC. Let's try to ping the PC3 from PC2 from PC1. Ping 10.0.1.10. For the first attempt we might lost some of the packets. Yes, we have received the reply, but for the next ping we will directly receive the acknowledgements from this PC2. So it means that we have received the reply from PC2. It means that our network is converged now and we are able to send any kind of traffic from PC1 to PC2. So this was all about static routing in this network design number 2. I hope you have learned and you will practice along, and if you have any query you can ask in comments. Please subscribe and share our videos to help spread this free series of videos. Thank you.